the piece is called "I Was Jordan Peterson's Strongest Supporter. Now I Think He's Dangerous," and he talks about all these things that they live together. For example, he points out this one moment where he says, even though there was nothing contentious about Jordan Peterson's research, he objected in principle to having his research reviewed by the University Ethics Committee, whose purpose is to protect the safety and well-being of experiment subjects. He requested a meeting with the committee. I wasn't present at it, but I was told that he had questioned the authority and expertise of the committee members, had insisted that he alone was in a position to judge whether his research was ethical. And then he later goes on to say, Jordan would routinely present conjecture as statement of fact. When I expressed my concern to him about this a number of times, each time Jordan would agree. He acknowledged the danger of such practices, but then continued to do it again and again, as if he could not control himself. He was a preacher more than a teacher. And then you throw in some of these other things, like he talks about how his earliest memory, or one of his earliest memories, was the funeral of Robert F. Kennedy. And this giant public funeral, and he talks about how one of his first memories was seeing this when he was like 5 years old or something, and saying to himself, quote, "I knew I wanted a funeral like that," and and then Maz talks about in the interview, he wanted to buy a church at some point. He was going to invest in a church so that he could, and then he would be the preacher, obviously. And then I just want to put this last one to stick on this religion thing that you brought up. That the opening quote, like when you open his first book, Maps of Meaning, I don't know what they're called, epigraphs or whatever, like the first words written, before you get to the title, is the quote, "I will utter things which have been kept secret from the foundation of the world." Matthew 13:35. So that, for the record, is quoting none other than Bethlehem's favorite carpenter, Jesus Christ.
Yeah.
So, there's
that's important context to as we look into who the man is, and I think Maz, in our interview, we that was part of our understanding, and I think it's important because the ambition angle is it informs the decisions he makes. Even like I said, even in my clip, there are brilliant insights that are valuable, but the decision and the circuitous path to success and fame, the choices are laden with this context of a very ambitious and smart guy. And he's a human, and he needs to be thought of as such. And that's what we said. What episode did we do where we said no saints? I think it might have been RBG.
Yeah.
We just don't do any saints. I don't think Jordan Peterson's anywhere near a saint here, but for some people might regard him as such, and I think that's a scary prospect.
And it's scary, and it's another factor that plays into this thing where then when you see somebody criticizing him, particularly if they're calling him names or whatever, and what I'm saying is you got to kind of turn down the volume when they're doing that and try to find what their actual criticism is, But if you think he's your guru, if you think like this is the guy who has the truth, then you will automatically get defensive, because by nature. And I think it's on us, all of us, to kind of like analyze who in our lives have we put on that pedestal. It's not fair to those who find things that they don't agree with in that person. It's not fair to us because nobody has all the truth. And it's actually in a very weird way, and I don't pretend to know exactly what pushed Peterson into this deep depression, where he ended up with an addiction to antidepressants and actually had to be induced into a coma for a few weeks in Russia as part of his recovery.
I don't know if I knew that.
But I have a feeling that this played a role, like this idea, the weight of having millions of people think you are the source of all the good information in the world, or something like this. Something about that pressure, I think, might have played a role. So it's just not a good approach all around to elevate any particularly living human. You could even make the argument for dead humans, but definitely living ones, up to that status. It shouldn't be reserved for anybody.
I think that's right, Jesse. I think that's absolutely right.